Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Mentally, I'm feeling much better. And part of that is I'm in Michigan, where I think we were like the second or third state with the most cases at one point.
Michigan in and of itself is a hot spot, is what I was told.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but my cousin is a doctor in a huge hospital in Oakland County, and he works on the floor. I can't remember what floor it is, but it's right when you are done with emergency, you're at the next level. I can't remember what it's like when you're stable enough to leave the emergency room. That's the floor he's on.
Right.
And a couple days ago, this was Easter actually, he told me that the hospital is slowing down to the point where it almost feels like it's back to normal. And then we also have a neighbor who's a nurse at a totally different hospital, about a 90-minute drive from his hospital. And she said the same, that it's starting to seem like it's back to normal. So
I have that overall sense, but it's just intuition. I mean, I look at graphs and things, but not all graphs are the same either. And I think part of it, my fear is that part of it's wishful thinking for me, or I'm just like, well, it's not bad here, so maybe it's not that bad everywhere else either, or maybe we're getting better. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, according to them, my cousin and neighbor, that yes, it is getting better. So that's good. Hopefully. So mentally, I'm starting to feel like, okay, hopefully, people aren't dying and getting as sick. And again, I could be in my own little bubble just from what I'm hearing. I personally tried to stay away from too much social media. It's like I find myself, my mood and my mental space around it can change like that depending on how much time I spend on Facebook. People arguing or, reading one really scary post. I mean, what I'm doing isn't changing. My family and I have not, I haven't put the kids in the car since March 16th. And we live in a very small town outside of, the craziness of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go grocery shopping. We don't have grocery delivery.
Right.
We don't have curbside checkout, like nothing like that. So we have to go to the grocery store.
Yep.
But other than that, even though I'm hearing positive things, we're not changing what we're doing right now because we want to make sure we're being safe, of course. But
the last time we went out to eat was like March 13th, on that Friday the 13th, where we had like a full moon and Friday the 13th, and everybody was freaking out about how weird all that was going to be. And then, and then it was like, this happens. And that night we were like, we might not go out to eat for a couple weeks. Well, that was, over a month ago now. And, and I don't know what that looks like moving forward yet. I feel like things keep getting pushed out, because even if it does start to taper down, the worst scenario that I can think of is in my mind is that people all jump back in too fast. Yeah. And then it all starts to spike again. And then, from a governmental standpoint, we have to go shelter in place again. And I can't imagine if that happens.
Right. And just to answer your question further, I think March 25th, I was in a weird place. I wasn't able to really accomplish anything. I was kind of like paralyzed. And I guess I still have days where I'm sort of like that, but I'm definitely getting more done now, which is great. Like, I think I've moved past just feeling like, horrible. So that's good. But it's, having two little kids, and I'm not a good full-time mom. I'm not going to lie. I'm a better mom when I work and have that time to just be myself, as opposed to just constantly being mom from, with kids who need something from me 24/7. And I love my boys. I'm not trying to sound like I'm not grateful.
Sure. Tell me about that, though. I wanted to dive, because I was listening to that podcast and reading the titles and about the other podcasts as I was listening to that one, just to get a feel for it. And I find that honesty and vulnerability even very refreshing.
Yeah.
Especially when it seems genuine, which in your case it certainly does. For you to say it to me how you said it again, as far as
I'm a better mom when I work.
You're a better mom when you work. Unpack that for me. I'd like to know a little bit more about that myself.
Yeah, I find myself to be more patient I get frustrated less. I'm just in a better mood when I've had some time to do the things that I love doing that don't involve constantly caring for someone else. And
Right.
I don't know, I mean, I had kids later in life. My first I had at 39 and my second at 41. So they're almost 4 and almost 2 now. So I was used to kind of doing what I wanted when I wanted
We're
all
in
the
the same
time.
we're in the
And
same boat.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Almost
you and Vicky had
exactly. Yeah.
really? So you and Vicky had kids later. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So, I was used to it, and that was intentional. I mean, we sort of rolled the dice hoping that I could still get pregnant
Right.
as,
Right.
older.
Right.
And we really are very fortunate that that was able to happen. And the reason I waited so long is because I loved what I was doing. My business was like my baby. I loved it. I loved working.
Oh man.
And I was
It's the
afraid
same
that,
here. It's the same. Now we adopted ours because we found out later on that we couldn't have children anyway, or it seemed that
oh,
way.
okay.
But
Okay. I didn't know you guys adopted.
yeah,
Okay.
but our business was our we said those exact words. I don't know how many times we've said those words. Our business was our baby for
Yeah.
a decade.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
then we're like, hey, we better have kids. And then we discover that it wasn't working. And then we're like, oh, we better adopt her. We won't, or it's not going to work out. Because at some point, even
Right.
with adoption, especially internationally, because our children are internationally adopted, they're like,
How did I
how?
not know this?
Oh,
I
well,
must be not be paying enough attention.
I don't think you were required to.
I
But
should be though. I love you
well,
guys.
I think it's very interesting that you word it that way because I do here's the piece. This gets dicey with people too, right? Like
Mhm.
some people, their hairs prick up on the back of their neck when they start hearing you speaking open and honestly about your parenting abilities and your parenting styles and the way that you prefer to do things and what works for you, especially if you have any hint whatsoever of your limitations when it comes to your parenting, right?
Mhm.
Am I dancing around that properly without saying
Yeah.
anything too overtly offensive?
Yeah, there is this sort of, I feel like there's almost this divide of, the Pinterest. Okay, and I'm so not saying one is better than the other.
No, we're not.
There are days when if I could be a Pinterest mom, especially right now, I would love that. Like if creating like making these amazing crafts and putting like
Yeah.
powdered donut, Easter bunny
Yes.
footprints on the wood floor was in the cards for me, I would love that. And to parents out there who do that, and like that is their world and they don't need the other, sort of
Kudos.
outlets.
Kudos to you,
Yeah, I
parents that
think
do
that's
that.
so wonderful. I
Yeah.
just know for me personally, the kids get a better version of me when I've got some alone time, when
Mm.
I've got some creative
Yes.
outlet through work.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's just how it is personally for me. And I think that sometimes maybe people feel like maybe they're a bad parent if they admit that or something.
I
So
think all
I'm
the time
like,
that happens. I think people are terrified to really own that and the reality of what that is for them.
right? And I have no problem being an open book about it. One, because I think, it's my authentic story. And two, if I can normalize that for someone else and make them
Yeah.
not feel alone,
Yeah.
then fantastic,
So what does
like,
that look like for you? Let's act as though for a second that we're not within the grip of this current pandemic. What
mhm,
does that look like for you when things are quote unquote normal?
yeah. So my husband and I kind of, you know, we're both entrepreneurs. He's an electrician and he recently just started his own business. When we first had our son, Van, he's almost 4. We both He worked full time, I worked full time, and we thought that we would have I would be able to kind of work at home when
Mm,
with Van there and
mm.
not have full-time childcare, and that was a joke. Like me trying to work with a newborn was
Right.
not hap
Right.
not happening. So, yeah, so we ended up having to get some childcare, and then fortunately I started my income was enough because I was like building my business too while I was having babies, and
Hmm.
my income was enough that he was able to quit his job except for very part time and stay at home with Van. So we were able to kind of make it so that we did have some childcare, but we didn't have to have full time. So it's been kind of a juggle that way. I have a photography studio, one in Seattle and one in Michigan. And we live in Michigan now, but we did live in Seattle. So we
Right.
were going back and forth. Yeah.
Right.
So I, love having my photography business. And I would, I would say I would probably doing, this was over the last couple years, 40 hours a week, I would say. But it was such like a mix of when I would do that, because there were times during the day when I felt like hanging out with my kids
Right.
and being entrepreneurs. I had that flexibility to
Right.
do that. So that meant I would
Right.
make that up in the evening. But something that was always consistent for me was work time is work time.
Mm.
Parenting time is parenting time. Because when I try to do both, everyone suffers.
Right.
I'm more frustrated. I'm not getting as much done. I'm not 100% present for my kids, and I'm not 100% present for my clients, and that just doesn't work. So I had to really start practicing that. Or yeah, for
How do you
sure. Like,
how do you keep how do you stay on that path? Like how did like even within the home, right? You're working at
yeah.
home. Do you have like a room where you come in if there's an emergency? Like in my office here, because we're in a studio home, right?
Mm-hmm.
The kids know. Like right now, my kids are in the back and they're doing their homeschool stuff.
Right.
And they know that dad's in a meeting
Mm-hmm.
and that you don't come in to get dad unless there is an absolute emergency. Now, mom's floating around in there too, so I don't have to worry so much about that. But don't you have to like really set some solid boundaries with it and make sure that everybody's on the same page?
Yes, definitely. And prior to all this happening, I have two studios I could go to, whether I was in Seattle or whether I was in Michigan. So I could escape in that way. Escape, that sounds so bad. But I could get away, and I didn't have to worry so much. But obviously I'm filming, recording in our bedroom right now. I don't
Right,
have an office at home.
right,
So in this situation, when we are stuck at home, and I actually did a podcast about this on Busy as a Mother, but and I'm the podcast host for Portrait System, which
right.
is Sue Bryce
Hmm.
education, podcast called the Portrait System, and I am loving podcasting. But because I can't leave, I can't have kids running in and out just like you
Right,
when I'm recording.
right.
And especially for the Portrait System, when this is, I'm doing this for the Sue Bryce education team, and I want to be fully, professional.
It's gotta
And
be good.
yeah, I'm not trying to have my kids run, and they understand, like, they're
Right,
amazing team. But
right,
so I ended up having to put some things in place. Like, my husband and son created a stop sign together. And when the stop sign's on the door, he's not allowed to come in because he's 3. He doesn't, and
right,
my 2-year-old, my 3-year-old is or 4-year-old, I guess, is trying to teach my 2-year-old, like, no, stop signs up. You can't go in. Mama's
right,
recording or whatever.
right.
So we've had to put some of these things into place just because, they're so little and they just don't get it. And their world is turned upside down too.
Yeah.
And we talk about what's happening, but they don't 100% understand why they're not going to preschool and daycare, and
Yeah,
like my mom and papa aren't coming over.
I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And so they're kind of like they get some of it. Some of it they
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
And then other parts of it they absolutely don't get. I think the biggest piece that they have trouble wrapping their mind around, of course, is that this is so unprecedented.
Right.
I think the fact that none of us really know what's going on or have experienced something like this, we've discussed that with them and they're like, oh, really? But then later on they'll be like, so what do we do, or how does this? And we're like, we don't know. We don't know. That still have never done it before. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is new. And we're like, yeah, this is new.
Right.
I what do you think? And I've asked this to everybody. So I like, or not everybody, but most people I've asked, what do you think is going to be categorically different for you on the other side of this? Not just from a business standpoint or economically, but I'm more interested in personally how has this changed you, do you think, where it's going to manifest in different ways on the other end?
Okay, this is an interesting question. There are a couple ways. One, being stuck at home with my kids, and my husband for this long has not been as bad as I thought.
Oh.
And coming from someone who is a tried and true, like, I'm a better mom when I work sort of situation. Granted, I am still working. I'm recording for the portrait
Mm-hmm.
system. I'm recording for Busy as a Mother.
Yeah.
Like, I do have that outlet, which is super helpful.
Yes.
But I think maybe I wasn't giving myself enough credit for what I am capable of. It's like when I know I can't leave the house, it's not like, "Oh, when do I get to leave the house?" Because it's just not an option.
Right.
So I think that that has helped me. This whole thing has helped me really get that. I don't think I was giving myself enough credit for the kind of mom I can be when I'm not away
Hmm.
from them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and I have been like, we've been kind of having fun with it. Like, we
Yeah.
never spend this much time together ever. Like, we are very much fly by the seat of the, when is tag team, you're it, I'm out, kind of couple. And so having all of this time together, it's been really cool. You know, it it kind of has brought us to a new fun place in our, I don't know. It's like we don't usually fight in general. Like, we're one of those couples that just gets along. I mean, we have our issues, of course, but it's been nice.
Why do you think you don't give yourself enough credit typically?
Oh man, I don't know. Probably goes back to like self-value, I guess, that, something I've been working on for years and years since childhood, if we're gonna go, like,
Well, I
I
think
don't
that
I
this
don't
might
know.
seem like a rabbit trail to people, but these are the things that I ponder in general. And what's happened to me during this time is that I ponder these things even more, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I have tended to dive a little bit deeper than I normally do, even. And so when you say, "Oh, I don't think I normally give myself enough credit for how good of a mom I can be," well, now you
Yeah.
found yourself in a situation that there's, and you can argue about how much we can control when things are normal, whatever that
Mhm.
means, but you've discovered that because of a bunch of circumstances that are absolutely out of your control, you're in this situation now. And you're finding that you are better than you thought you could be, better than you thought you were, and you're realizing that you didn't think you were as good as you are.
Right. Right.
And
Totally.
that's fascinating to me because I think that's happening to a lot of people right now,
Yeah.
right? We're all in this
Yeah.
scenario, we're all collectively here together, and we're finding out things about ourselves that normally we don't have the opportunity to discover
Mhm.
because we're gripped by other circumstances.
It's so true. We don't take the time to really slow down and reflect. And yeah, I do. I think it is a silver lining. I mean, not to like say that there, I guess like I go back and forth between like finding silver linings in this, because I think about
Yep.
the kids, the families who are really suffering, the
Yep.
kids who are in abusive households and who don't have school as an outlet,
Oh,
and
yep.
families who aren't able to pay their bills, and all of those things, just like, you just,
It's heavy.
I hate to think like, oh, but the silver lining for me. But
Right.
I think that at the same time, even though there are people who are really struggling and suffering and have it way, way worse than I do, I guess it makes sense to at least honor them in the fact that I do have some good things going on, and not be so, take advantage of that, or take, not take advantage, but not take that for granted.
That's it. That's it. Not take it for granted. I think
Yes.
I think the gratitude piece is maybe the biggest piece for me. And I think I've said this before with someone else, but for me, the gratitude piece is the biggest piece.
Mm, mhm.
And I think that if there's a secret to life, or if there's something that I want to strive for, it's contentment.
Mm,
I want to be
mhm.
content.
Yes.
And I think gratitude is required for contentment.
Yes, I love that, Jed.
Well,
Totally.
thank you. I've been this is what I mull lately. Like, what do I really want? And that's the other thing that I've asked people. What do you want? Right?
Mhm.
Because we have some time to think about it right now. Another
Mhm.
thing that happens, you get caught up in the stream of your life, and it's a quickly moving stream down a lot of rapids, and you're
Mhm.
so focused on keeping your boat afloat that you don't really have time to think about other stuff. Well, now here we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually, when I was listening to your podcast about how you weren't getting things done and how you found yourself constantly distracted,
Yeah.
my experience with that is very similar, but I think for me emotionally, I get constantly distracted by other things because when I stop, it's just me and my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and those truths that are just kind of sitting there waiting for me.
Oh yeah.
And some of that is terrifying
Yeah. Yeah, right.
when
Absolutely.
it's just me and my thoughts. Um, what is the message that you have, given everything that we've just discussed? What is the message that you have for people that are out there right now? And you can speak to different groups, of course, because there are some people that are not doing so well. There are some people that are doing okay. And I have spoken to a few people that are finding ways to thrive right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is your message for those different groups of people?
Man,
Who
you
comes to
know,
your mind to speak to first?
I guess my whole no, not my whole life. I guess my whole adulthood, I've always been someone who, if I'm not happy, I need to make the change. I learned that from a little girl that no one's gonna make me happy and make the changes for me
Mm,
that I need to make in order to be content, like you said,
mm,
or happy. And I think in this, I don't know, it's just a really good time to self-reflect about what truly does make you happy. I
mm,
mean, what is it that brings you joy? What is
mm.
it that and I'm not speaking to people who are in the trenches because I
Yeah.
don't honestly right now I don't know what it's like to be in the
Well,
trenches.
that's
I
why I
don't.
wanted
And
to distinguish that too, right?
yeah, but for people who, you know, you're hanging in there and you're doing okay. Like, yeah, things might suck right now,
Yeah.
but you're doing okay. This is such a good time to just reflect on what are the changes once things get back to our new normal. What are the changes that you're going to make to have the happiness
Yeah.
that you deserve?
That leads
You
me to
know,
something that just happened this morning. I had somebody text me and say, so and so just announced that they're done in the photography community. And I was freaking out thinking, no way. And I checked and it wasn't checking out. And I got back to him and I said, well, I need to know, where you saw that because this would be a really big deal. And
mhm.
it turned out to be somebody else with the same name or something like that.
Oh,
Anyway, I was like, oh, but the person that's happening to is still fairly prominent and has thousands and thousands of followers and whatever else. And I wondered, this is what I wondered. Are there going to be people who, because of this, have been forced to evaluate how hard they
mm,
were working and how much stress and anxiety they were really taking in order
mhm,
to attain and continue and nurture a
mhm.
certain level that they thought they had to in order to keep going, where now they've been like, huh, that's not worth it.
Mm,
And I'm not saying that should lead to you shutting everything down. But what I am saying is we have been forced to reevaluate ourselves whether we like it or not. And it goes back to maybe what I was unintentionally saying earlier. Those truths are just sitting there, right?
mhm.
So you've been at the Peloton, so to speak, trying to keep that thing going for months and months
Right.
and months, and for some people for years and years and years. And sure, you've attained 12,000 followers or maybe 38,000 followers or whatever that is. And
Mhm.
that's been a lot of work. And you're pumping out sessions and you're pumping out images and you're editing till 2 or 3 in the morning. And maybe now you're realizing, whoa, I got to do something different.
Right.
Because
Or
none of that's giving me the joy and the happiness that I thought it was.
that is, I'm sure a lot of people are going to experience that. And I wonder too, on the flip side, if people are going to think, actually, I really miss doing that right now and not having the sessions to edit. We all, I think,
The
get to the
flip
point where
side,
we're like, yeah, where we're like, oh, I'm just underwater with how many sessions I need to edit. I mean, this is the first time since I started my business that I don't have any photos waiting to be
Right.
edited or delivered.
Right.
I mean,
Right. I
truly.
know it. Same.
And
Same here.
and for me, honestly, it kind of feels nice.
Yeah.
I love being a photographer. I was a social worker for years and years before this. So being a photographer is just such a dream job for me.
Hmm.
And I I love it and I want to continue doing it. And I've also learned some other things that I truly love to do during this time. Like, I mentioned I work with Sue Bryce Education doing the podcast, and I've just been spending so much time remotely, obviously, with the team, and it's just the best team. I love this
Yeah.
team. And it made me like, okay, I want to spend more time working with this team. I love
Right.
this team. So and again, how much I love doing the both of the podcasts. It's like for me, like, man, I wonder if I could slow down a little bit on shooting for, the summer maybe, and see how some of this other stuff goes. And still, of course, I still want to shoot. I
Right.
love it.
Right.
And maybe I could slow down a little bit and take some other. So I think everyone is probably finding different paths through this or wanting to get back to what they were doing.
I think that's interesting. I didn't think about the flip side. I like it when someone presents the flip side to me when I wasn't even considering it. But I think the break for a lot of people, maybe the break is nice as long as it's a break,
Right.
right? Like, oh, this is nice to catch a breath. But a lot of people are probably getting really antsy and getting
Yeah.
and really wanting to get back into the mix, right? And get started
It's
again.
very possible. I mean, I think about especially wedding photographers right now where
Oh,
that's it's starting into busy season. It's a
mm,
big, chunk of
mm-hmm,
income,
mm-hmm.
and it's scary, where is that money coming from? And how, are people going to make it up? And it's crazy because when I was thinking back, I was like, wait a minute, I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, it's only been a month, but it
Yeah.
feels like
Oh,
losing a month of income can make a really big difference for people if they weren't completely set up. We actually just did a podcast on the portrait system with Sue, where I learned how to value money, how to save money. Like, I learned, I changed how I deal with money. I'm not in debt anymore because of what I've learned from her. And
mm-hmm.
she just did this podcast episode 2 weeks ago. We aired it, about money and what to do and how to keep yourself from being in this situation and how to change the mindset around money. And I think that, gosh, I hope that maybe people who, and granted, I was one of these people. If this was happening, 6 years ago, I
Yeah.
would be like, I am screwed.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I'm in a place in my life where I've done the value work around money
Mm-hmm.
and the energy work around money. So I'm in a place right now where I'm feeling, I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna like go bankrupt over this.
Right. Right.
Um,
But you
I
did the
don't even know
work.
where I was going with this,
Well, you did the
but
work that you did the work for it. And maybe I'll put some words in your mouth. Maybe you're saying that hopefully there were people that are on the other end of that a little bit and that this can bring them to a point where not only can you there's so many things that a time like this can do for people. And one of
Mhm.
them is an opportunity to evaluate where you
Yes.
were, right? You have time to actually see where you were and find some of the flaws, those truths again, some of them are those truths, where you can then make adjustments moving forward so that on the other side of this, you actually live a different way. You
Mhm.
actually are putting some intentional pieces in place where,
Mhm.
because of this, things are going to look different for you on the other side, right?
Right.
Whereas,
Right.
whereas if you would have just kept rolling down that, those rapids, you wouldn't have had the time or the ability to even pull yourself out of it to make those adjustments. Is that fair to
Totally.
say?
Totally. It's like what lesson can I learn out of this really
Right,
challenging time right
right,
now, and how can I make sure it doesn't happen again? What can I do differently?
right.
It's not blaming the economy, it's
Yeah,
not blaming, other photographers or my print company, or, who couldn't get this out for me or whatever. Like, this is all on what can I do differently next time, because I'm the only one who has full control on what my life is going to. Yes, things happen out of our control, but what how I'm going to come out on the other side is up to me. And even little changes, like with customer service, for example, I think a lot of people are paying attention to businesses who have great customer service right now. Like,
More than ever. Yeah.
yeah, White House has always been my print lab of choice,
Yeah.
and the customer service from White House has always been stellar,
Yeah.
phenomenal. And
Yeah.
that's something that I've always known about them. And I think sometimes people get so comfortable in their business that maybe they slip a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is another thing that people are going to reevaluate is, what does my customer service look like? How are my, do I have these clients who are loyal to me and going to come back to me because of, how I've treated them over the years?
Right.
And I think even little things like that about how we run our business might change.
Right.
I don't know,
Oh, I
but
think you're absolutely right. I think that it's times like this where the rubber meets the road, right? And these times regarding customer service in particular are when people really notice it. Like, this
yeah,
is your opportunity right now to
totally.
nurture those relationships with your clients. I'm not saying go out there and do these big marketing campaigns to try to get them to spend money with you, right? I'm trying to say nurture those relationships right now. And when you were talking about blame, it made me think, yeah, you know what? Sometimes it's in your best interest to refrain from placing the blame even when there really is blame to be placed, right? Like, sure, you could point fingers all over the place right now, but is that really going to help you, right? Like, even if it is somebody else's fault,
Right.
sometimes it helps to just move on, push through, and keep going without
Totally.
spending much, if not any time whatsoever, pointing any fingers at anybody else, because that requires energy. And right now, we need that energy for better things.
Yeah. Like, if, even I think about if I have a client who's not happy for some reason, I'm like, all right, where did I go wrong?
Right.
Did I not educate them enough? Did
Right.
did I not did I not listen to exactly what they wanted for their
Right.
photos? What is it that I did different? And life for me is so much easier that way, because when I'm the one who can fix it, I love to be in control.
Right.
If
Right.
I'm the one who can fix it, then great.
Right. Right. That's
It's
a good
on
thing.
me.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
I did want to, I had a Zoom call with a bunch of photographers in a group that I'm part of, and just such a great group. And someone was saying how they wanted to offer like really heavily discounted sessions. And part of me was like, man, be careful, because you have worked so hard to get your prices up to where they are,
Yeah.
and you deserve those big prices. And yes, we want to provide good customer service, and we want to be the company that people come back to and everything, but at the same time, we're still not a charity. We are a business, and we have to continue to run like a business. And there are a lot of businesses who are thriving in this time, like you said. And yes, we don't want to what's the word? I'm totally blanking at the word. Like, we don't want to take advantage of the situation,
Right.
but at the same time,
You don't
we're
want to
not a
exploit
charity.
it.
You don't need to
Right.
drop your session to like $100 just
Yeah.
because it's a tough time. People aren't going to spend the money with you if they can't.
Right.
And people who still want it, because there are still a lot of people out there who their income has not changed.
Right.
I mean, lots of people who they are still making the same money that they did before. They're just working from home.
Yeah.
And there are going to be people who are going to want to book photo shoots with you as soon as this is done at your full price. So
Right.
don't sell yourself short. You're not a charity. If you want to do things nice for people, like my husband and I were like, okay, what can we do right now? So we bought, we're not like rolling in the dough or anything, but we're okay. So we're like, all right, we got three $30 gift cards to a local grocery store, and I posted on Facebook. I'm like, who knows someone who needs this?
Yeah.
And then we anonymously sent 3 grocery gift cards. That's how you can help people, not by like completely like ruining your business by dropping down to $50
Right.
photo. You know what I mean?
Right. 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 Don't do the things that are going to end up biting you later on, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I just kind of went off a little tangent there. Sorry.
Well, I think, no, that's good. It's good advice, because again, because this is unprecedented and we don't really know, there's no rule book. We can't look on
true.
page 74 subsection C and say,
Right.
oh, and when this happens, this is how we're supposed to handle this situation, right?
Right. Yeah.
Tell me where people can find you right now. Throw out some ats and some wwws for people to go to.
Yeah, mostly just my name. So at Nikki Closser is Instagram. NikkiClosser.com is my website. For the portrait system stuff, it's SueBryceEducation.com/podcast is where you can find the portrait system episodes. Mine is busyasamotherpodcast.com. Or you can just find it through my website.
That name just makes me smile every time. I love
Busy as a mother.
I love it.
I know. It's really supposed to be sarcastic. Like the whole point is we don't want to be that busy. And so that's really the point of the podcast, is just to help people, mom entrepreneurs specifically, but it can be helpful to anyone really.
Yeah, it was helpful to me. I enjoyed listening to it.
Good. I'm glad.
Thanks for your time to do this with me. I would like to speak to you more when we're on the other side, and when we are going out to dinner, and when we are seeing people in public, and when I get to hug my mom again. It will be nice to do this again with you sometime.
I would love that, Jed. I always like seeing you. Anytime I see you at a conference or whatever, it's just, you're just such a great guy. People really like you a lot. They really do. Like, people say really nice things about you behind your back. I hope you know that.
Well, that makes me very happy. Thank you. I will see you next time then. Thanks again.
Yep, sounds good. Take care. Say hi to Vicky.
I will. Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right. Right there. It's there somewhere.